So what now? You've stepped back, unsubscribed, let go of the scripts that told you who to be. But emptiness isn't freedom, not on its own. The question becomes, what fills the space? When the noise stops, what do you want to hear? This segment is about the rebuild, not the rebrand, not a new costume, but a new compass, internal, calibrated, yours. Because masculinity isn't something you achieve, it's something you navigate. And you don't need a map, you need a direction. First, let's reclaim strength, not as dominance, not as stoicism, but as presence. The strength to stay in the room when things get hard, to feel without fleeing, to respond without retaliating, to know what you value and act from it, not just react from pain. That's strength, and it rarely looks like a flex. Then, reclaim vulnerability, not as confession, not as collapse, but as a capacity to reveal yourself in layers, to say, I don't know, to ask for help without self-erasing. Vulnerability isn't the opposite of masculinity. It's the doorway to intimacy, and without intimacy, nothing grows. Reclaim curiosity, because performance is rigid, but healing is elastic. Ask better questions about yourself, about others, about the world you inherited and the one you want to help create. Curiosity deconstructs shame. It loosens the grip of certainty, and it makes space for actual growth. And reclaim slowness, because the Manosphere rushes. Everything is urgent, everything is war, everything is a limited time offer on manhood. But real change doesn't happen in a hurry. It happens in pauses, in reflection, in silence. Speed hides a lot of emptiness. Slowness reveals what's real. You are allowed to be gentle, not just with others, with yourself. You're allowed to move without a plan, to rest without guilt, to love without strategy. That's not regression, that's repair, and repair is sacred. Find your language again, the one that doesn't echo someone else's script. What does honesty sound like in your voice? What does care look like when it's not performative? What boundaries feel right for your life, not just your feet? You're not here to be branded. You're here to be whole. Build friendships that aren't transactional, where you don't have to earn your seat, where you can bring your joy, your grief, your silence. Not high-value men, just good men. Men who know that masculinity isn't a competition, it's a conversation. Practice accountability, but not as punishment, as commitment to your values, to your growth, to the kind of man you said you wanted to become when no one was watching. Accountability without shame is powerful because it builds trust, and trust is the soil for real legacy. And yes, reclaim desire. Let it be human, let it be complex, let it breathe. Desire isn't dangerous. Unconscious desire is. You don't need to suppress it. You need to understand it so it doesn't drive your life from the shadows. Start small. You're not rebuilding an empire. You're reclaiming a self. And a self is made of choices. How you speak, how you rest, how you show up for people when there's nothing to gain. These are the practices that shape who you become. This is where the compass lives, not in your image, but in your integrity. Not in what you project, but in what you protect. Not in how loudly you speak, but in what you're willing to listen to, especially when it challenges you. There will be days when you doubt, days when the old scripts feel easier, when you miss the edge, the swagger, the clarity. Let them pass. Don't punish yourself for remembering the performance. Thank yourself for choosing the real. This is not a linear path, it's a spiral. You'll return, but differently. So pause here. Feel where you are. No posturing, no performance. Just breathe, just body, just being. You don't need to prove anything. You're not a product, you're a presence, and you're still unfolding. Start noticing what nourishes you, not what stimulates you, not what impresses others. What nourishes? A long walk, a deep laugh, a hard truth told gently, a friendship that doesn't require a performance. These are small things, but they become your foundation. Redefine leadership, not as command, but as presence. Leadership isn't being followed, it's being felt. It's showing people they don't have to hustle for safety, that strength can sound like stillness, that protection doesn't require control. You don't have to be in charge to be a guide. Reject cynicism, but keep discernment. Cynicism is easy. It's armor that protects you from disappointment by making connection feel naive. Discernment, on the other hand, is the quiet wisdom of someone who's been through the fire and can still recognize warmth when it's offered. Make peace with softness, not as weakness, but as wisdom, as restraint, as clarity. The soft man is not the lesser man. He's the man who doesn't need fear to hold his boundaries, who doesn't need conquest to feel powerful. Practice repair. When you mess up, and you will, don't collapse, don't deflect, repair. Own it, learn, stay in the conversation. Masculinity isn't about being flawless, it's about being honest in motion. And when you find yourself drifting, when the old voices return, when the algorithm creeps back in, when you feel the tug of performative masculinity, return to breathe, return to slowness, return to your compass. Your integrity is not a fixed destination, it's the path itself. Seek interdependence, not isolation. You weren't meant to figure this out alone. You were meant to do this in community, not a hierarchy, not a competition, but a circle, a fire where each man brings his story and leaves with something a little lighter. Share what you've learned, not to impress, but to illuminate. Speak softly. Let others find their own way. Don't push, offer. Don't correct, reflect. Be a mirror, not a megaphone. The world doesn't need louder men. It needs clearer ones. Remember that masculinity is not under attack. It's under reconstruction. The old structures are crumbling. And that's good. Not because manhood is obsolete, but because it's overdue for an upgrade. Not to be erased, but to be expanded. You are part of that expansion, not as a savior, not as a thought leader, just as a man who chose not to outsource his soul to the feed. You are the algorithm's nightmare because you stopped clicking and started listening. Let grief stay with you, not as weight, but as witness. Grieve what was lost, what was never taught, what was passed down to you broken. Grief doesn't weaken you, it deepens you. It softens the edges without dulling the core. That softness is your strength now. Let joy back in, because this work isn't just about healing, it's about aliveness. about rediscovering what makes you laugh, what makes you move, what makes you feel fully here. Joy is resistance. In a culture that profits from your dissatisfaction, joy is a radical reclamation. Keep your compass close, not just in your beliefs, but in your body, in how you speak, in how you listen, in what you build, in what you refuse to destroy. Masculinity is not an aesthetic, it's a practice, daily, relational, alive. So ask yourself one last time, who are you becoming when no one is watching? Who are you when the feed is quiet, when the crowd is gone, when it's just you and your reflection? If you can answer that with softness and certainty, you've already found a compass. Thank you for walking this path, not just with me, but with yourself. This course isn't the end, it's the door. Where you go from here, what kind of man you become, what kind of world you help shape, that's yours now. So go quietly, go fully, and go as someone who no longer needs to perform what he has already reclaimed.